Hello and welcome to LaunchLeft. I'm your host, Rain Phoenix. Today's very special guest is Band of Horses. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. Follow us on all socials at LaunchLeft. Welcome Ben from Band of Horses to the show.
Hey, how we doing?
Are you in South Carolina?
I am. Yeah, I'm at home in just outside of Charleston, South Carolina.
I spent some time in Charleston doing a movie, God, I think it was like in 98, called O. We shot it there. It was the remake of Othello. I love the South. It's so beautiful as far as horticulture and, people are always nice. But there was also this kind of unspoken, but definitely energetically felt by me, intense racial divide that was very, at times, disturbing in that particular city. You've just felt the karmic past so intensely. To me, I was always like, ow, there were certain parts of the city that hurt to pass through.
Wow, you're going straight for it.
Yeah, I tend to do that. I'm sorry.
No, anyway. That's amazing. Not the funniest subject, but it's something, even as a kid coming here, because I grew up in the middle of the state, which is probably even more gross. Coming as field trips and stuff as a kid, and going to the market and stuff, which is basically the market where they sold slaves. One of the biggest ports to bring in enslaved folks. It's always been this intense, dark blanket that does exist here very much, and I've recognized it since I was a kid, and I still feel it today.
Yeah, it's like the definite ghost energy.
God,
yeah,
absolutely. It's
sadness, like you said. Blanket was a perfect way to say it. It's like a heaviness.
Well, it's weird when there's people that are coming as tourists coming here to go shop at the market and stuff like that, and don't realize the history of what their feet are touching upon there, and the capitalistic grossness of it all mixed in with the ignorance is it's absurd.
There was a shop there that I like to go to called New South. I don't know if they still exist. It was streetwear. They were taking back the rebel flag and making it reggae colors or something. And
and Jamaican colors.
Yeah.
African nation flags. Yes, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite places to go.
It's still tough to see the stars in bars like that.
I know, yeah.
In any form or fashion, in a way. I kind of repel from it. I absolutely repel from it.
The new record is fantastic, and I loved hearing how you I'm a huge fan of changing things up when it feels right, and I loved hearing how you morph and change with the creative.
Well, I've been lucky enough to work with good friends of mine, and that makes it even more hard. Just having to have those tough conversations. I think I'm gonna go in a different direction, and I feel like the direction's gonna be outside of our direction together. That stuff sucks, and it's tough when you love people. I tend to be a pleaser and a lover, where it's really difficult for me to be honest sometimes, brutally. I'm very easy to be honest, but not when it comes to professional stuff or creative stuff. I find it really hard to let people down, or feel like I'm letting them down by saying I'm going off on my own in a different direction.
Having made that choice, as hard as it was a good choice to make.
You're obviously very intuitive as well. I think it was the moves that we made were the right ones. It was expensive and stupid at times, and sometimes maybe a bit clandestine, or hiding in the shadows type shit, where you're man, I know this thing ain't it yet. So let's just hang tight for a second. I'm going to figure this damn thing out. But it did lead to like, yeah, greener pastures, better art, I think. And I think to answer your question better, is after, this is a 6th damn album for this band. Like, and I was in another band for like 10 years. At what point do you like steer your own ship, or do you say, you know what, I deserve a chance at least to make artistic directions a bit more, with a bit more jab or something like that, a bit more like get out of my damn way. And no offense to anybody that worked on the record or any of the records before, but at some point you got to drive your own bus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that works out. Cause it's all, who knows what's, if it's good or not, who cares? How do you know that you're successful, or like your album was a success? Like you did a good ass job. Who knows? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's always been up to you to whether or not to steer it, but you finally like had the confidence, or like, you know what, I want to do this. And so it really wasn't so much about any of the other people involved in terms of them stopping you from doing that. It was about you having the like confidence to.
I think I was ready, I guess, but it took, I'm kicking and screaming all the way through it. Right. Mm-hmm. Like I don't have that confidence. I never have. I didn't mean to even end up in this job, but I'm really glad it came to me. But no, I'm still like, haphazardly and reticently or whatever, like, just like, oh shit, what are we doing? So for better or worse, yeah, I have held the reins. And even in the records that aren't as good as this one, it was still my damn decision. It's still my fault if it sucked.
Well, speaking of, you said you don't even know how you really got into this necessarily. I was going to ask you at what point did you know or start to play music? At what age, and when did you kind of find music, or when did music find you?
God, music found me, luckily, since I was an infant. My parents were really into great music, and I heard music all night, every night, basically. Because they would like throw parties and just always music playing. So I was lucky to be brought up with good music and kind of beaten into my bones. And then I quit school my second 9th grade year. I quit school and moved out to Tucson, Arizona, and met some kids that were like musicians. Weird. And because I had a car, I was useful. So we started to like drive around the West and get them shows and stuff like that. At some point, I'll fast forward, I moved out to Seattle by myself, get a job at a rock club that was owned by Peter Buck from REM at the time. It was owned by him.
The Crocodile?
You got it.
Yeah.
They hired me with my sleeping bag on my back.
Wow.
And I was underage. I shouldn't have been working there. So I had like a fake ID. And Isaac from Modest Mouse helped me get the job. I worked there for, I want to say like 5 or 6 years, maybe more. And I was like in the dish pit. I started in the dish pit, worked my way up into being a line cook, learned how to cook. And I saved every tip that I got. I saved every tip and started a record label. And that's where music really found me.
Wow. Wow. So you started a record label before you were a musician?
I've never been a musician. I just got thrown into it. So I start this record label, and those two friends from Tucson, Arizona, I start to release their records. And then one of their members, funny enough, their drummer ends up leaving to be a utility player for Modest Mouse. And so they need a drummer. And they're like, well, we like Ben and we get along. We know we can get along on the road. So they taught me how to play drums a little bit, which was, I'm a terrible drummer, but there's no such thing because we all like to feel and play music the way we feel and play.
Right.
But I was good enough to play with them for a while. And then that band broke up and no one was using the practice space. So I went up there and tried to learn how to play guitar and sing songs.
Like, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I started playing music. Which one was like won out as the most important? Sex, drugs, or rock and roll?
Pretty decent question. Because of where I come from and growing up on that music and hearing every day on the way to a baseball game or to school, my parents like blasting music. Rock and roll means a lot to me. I can tell you, like, yeah, to get a pretty girlfriend, it ain't a bad idea to get into being a guitar person or a singer, or to get some free drugs or something, or to find a place to go do drugs. Not a bad job. But no, rock and roll reigns true.
If you had to pick one album, what album changed your life?
Whew. Okay. When Crooked Rain came out, I was still in high school, my second 9th grade year. And I snuck her Jeep out and drove to Charleston with like my girlfriend. And we saw Pavement play. Because it's funny. I want to say, maybe it was Wowie's Alley, because they had 2 records that came out within like a year of each other. And it was like, what the fuck, dude? Pavement's got all this stuff. And I'm still like a nubber. I'm like, 14, 15? But I had enough driver's license that I could at least not get in trouble getting pulled over. So there was a turning point there, discovering Pavement. I'm guessing it was Crooked Rain, though.
So you were 14, you said, when you discovered it?
Yeah. I was lucky that my brother was into good music. He was like 4 years older than I am. My brother got me into really good music when I was going into like junior high or something like that. Like 12 or 13, he got me into like Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth. And that kind of stuff, like the SST stuff, Matador stuff, and Sub Pop stuff informed my later childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky me.
Do you remember what format you listened to that Pavement record on? Whether
cassette
it was like
tape.
Cassette, yeah.
Yep.
So cool. Have you felt differently about that record over the years?
Oh, I feel more and more for it. I mean, nostalgia is a thing, I believe. And I guess I find more relevance in the era and where it hit me, like the time that it hit me. But I also still find more relevance in the songs. You find things in those songs that you didn't hear when you were a kid, or understand the lyrics better. I think I hold it even tighter now.
And do you have a top song from that record?
Shit. I mean, Gold Sounds, I guess, like, makes me just want to fucking cry every time I hear it. Like, it reminds me of people that, from those days. But the whole thing, I mean, you can start that album from the start to finish. Give me the whole thing. I ain't choosing one song. Did
you feel the album introduced you to other important records in your life?
Absolutely.
Like gateway drug?
Abso-fucking-lutely. It was so pivotal to me in my early journey that and getting into like indie rock and punk rock stuff, which in Irmo, South Carolina, there weren't a lot of us. It was definitely like the gateway into like a whole burgeoning indie rock thing and scene. And those guys are from back then. They're from Stockton, California, which might as well be in damn Paris, France. Mm-hmm. They're so far away. And no one stops off the damn highway to come to Columbia or Charleston. They go to Athens, Georgia, or they go to damn Chapel Hill, North Carolina. They skip us. So we know we got to make journeys. to go see our bands, right? But speaking of Chapel Hill, there was a bunch of bands coming out of there. Archers of Loaf being my favorite at the time. They're close enough where you feel like they're the hometown team. But you also had Polvo and Superchunk and a lot of those bands. Not to mention REM down the road in Athens doing what they do. But by that time, they become superstars. Yeah, and you want to hang your hat on again, like the local team or like, some local bands. We just didn't have that. We didn't have local bands that were on that level. The Archers of Loaf, they were like competing on that damn level. So I saw Archers in probably 5 or 6 different states I've seen them in. And now Matt from Archers plays in our band for the second time. He's with us. And I still hold them in as high of a regard as I do the Pavements and the Dinos and the Sebados and them.
Off that, I'm curious if there's any more current bands that might be under the radar that you know of or have heard of, or even artists that you've heard of them play you a song and you're like, oh, I want to say their name out loud.
I don't mean to be like Charleston centric, but there's some really great bands down here. My friend Feline, her band's called Feline, F-A-L-I-N-E. She does some rad shit. She Returns from War is another band that I love down here. And Susto, S-U-S-T-O. Not to mention, there's a band from LA I love called Bachelor. I love their record that came out last year or the year before. But I'm kind of lagging right now. It's funny. I get so far up my own ass with making records sometimes that I forget to listen to music. And that's when I'm like the least happy, honestly, is when I'm not discovering new stuff. So I'm definitely due, now that this album's finally getting out and off my damn back. It's like one of those, I go in cycles like that. And I'm definitely right for the picking as far as music fan person goes.
What on this record did you do differently than you've done on every previous record?
Well, besides like kind of, muscling my way in to the production a bit more, I'd say the thing that was most profound to me was talking the way I talk. Saying words like fuck. Saying words like shit. That's the way I talk. Fucking shit. So it was was very liberating to just be myself and tell my story the way that I would tell my fucking story and shit, the way I fucking tell it and shit. So pardon the cuss words. I'm not sure if this is like supposed to be family friendly, but
no, you're fine.
But it felt important to me to speak the way I speak, because I'd been a bit like censored in the previous records where it's like, oh, don't say it like that. Don't say that. From the get, honestly, people tell me like, don't cuss on a record now, or don't be who you are. I felt like it was important to at least take a stab at talking the way I talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think censorship is a real nefarious thing in any capacity, in any way that it manifests. So self-censorship is part of that. And so good for you.
Yeah, but it's not just the cuss words and stuff. Honestly, it's like there was a lot of intense things going on personally. So it's like you have to be brave enough to tell the story correctly, or like not be afraid to tell it the way you see it happening. Of course, you also have to add in his, hers, and the truth, right? Like you're allowed to balance that out, but don't be afraid to tell your version of it the way that you see it, for fear of, well, I have 4 daughters. Like, are they going to hear this one day? Or is my ex-wife going to hear this one day? Like, are people going to hear this and be like disturbed by the TMI shit? Like,
right.
there's some freedom in being honest, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a bit of a leap for me.
Let me know if I'm incorrect with this, but I think what you're saying is that while it's important to be honest, it does require a level of skillfulness to not harm people in your honesty too. Is that what you kind of meant?
I do, but I also mean it's also important to tell or to show both sides of the coin.
Mm.
So even if you think I might be talking about my perspective, it might be, his, hers, or the truth at times.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to make sure that there's a balance to make sure that it's being there. We're keeping the balance to make sure it's not just like shit talking.
Yeah. Yeah. A one-sided rant.
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am. I won't. It's not fair.
You know what? I'm going to jump around here. Did you see the Beatles thing? One of my favorite sentences that they said was, "It doesn't sing well, doesn't sing right." To me, what I was trying to say about the lyrics is you found a way to make your stories or your truth or your he said, she said sing right too. And that's an art in itself. So
that's mighty kind. Hooray. Yeah. Mighty kind of you. That is a thing. Cause you want to tell again, you want to talk the way you talk. You want to tell it as it is or as it was as correctly as possible. And sometimes, those words can sound ugly. There definitely is a bit of I'm not sure if it's an art because I don't want to pat myself on the back because I would never. But there is some snaking around and you don't want to use too many metaphors and obscure the narrative. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Shit. I hope the record's good because I hope the songs, you want it to be universal. You want it to be universal for all that are listening. You want those stories to become their stories and them to put themselves inside of those stories and not you. I can finally get them off my back. There's a fine balance between being painfully honest, yet artfully skillful in the words department.
I wish you all the luck because I do think you don't need it. So I'm just going to wish it for you anyway.
Oh, shit. Thanks. Back at you.
I think, the record's really saying something and it'll resonate where it's supposed to, right?
I hope so, yeah.
So you've got 4 daughters and how many dogs? I wanted to ask actually about, speaking of Seattle, do you still have the label that you started there after working at the Crocodile?
No, I felt like I was kind of impeding people's progression in their careers. I'm like, this is a hobby label. It's a stepping stone. And I could get them to Sub Pop or, a different label. There's so many damn labels up there at the time. It was just so they could have CDRs and shit to sell at their shows.
That's cool, though. Providing a service to artists even ahead of you knowing you were a musical artist is pretty. I think sometimes that helps clear the way for your own stuff because it's all about offering too. It can't be all about you. So
damn right. If you want to hear something funny though, so if you've heard of the band Iron and Wine.
Oh yeah, I played with them. Yeah, I've opened for them.
There we go.
Times.
Well, Sam's from Chapin, South Carolina. I'm from Irmo. They're rival football schools, just down the street from one another. And he is a good friend of my brother's. That same brother that got me into good music. He and Sam are the same age. And I was going to put out Sam's first record because he was kind of like a hobby musician at the time. And I was like, damn, I'm going to ruin this guy's damn career. There's no way he can start his music is too important to be on Brown Records. So that's where I handed his music to Sub Pop, Megan Jasper, who's my mentor. Megan's the shit. She's still the GM at Sub Pop. And so I kind of, help bridge the gap to get Sam to Sub Pop. And then a couple of years later, I formed Band of Horses, and Sam has me open up for him in Seattle, and Sub Pop comes up and like gets my demo CD, and in turn, we got each other signed to Sub Pop Records from the catty corner of the shit towns of South Carolina all the way up to Seattle, Washington. If you can see America right here, and Florida sucks. So don't think about Florida. Georgia's down here. Go Dogs. But
I beg your pardon.
Sorry. It's fine, actually.
Gainesville, North Central Florida's okay.
I know. I'm messing with you. But
that's amazing, though. What a cool story. Yeah.
We both got one another signed to Sub Pop Records from the farthest corner, almost.
I'm so glad we met. Thank you for sharing this time. Yeah.
Great job, Rain.
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.